Well, good afternoon, everybody. Looks like everybody's joined the webinar now. As I mentioned, my name's Chris Wright, and I'll be hosting the webinar this afternoon. We'll have probably 15 minutes of PowerPoints and then a live demonstration, and I can take questions at the end. So Geocortex Analytics is a GIS application performance management tool. As customers, you already have invested heavily in GIS systems that you must ensure that you safeguard a positive experience for the users using those applications. It's important that you as customers see the best returns from your GIS investments by monitoring its performance. Analytics ensures you get the best value from your investment. During this presentation, we will answer the three main application performance questions in one place. ROI. What sites and services are being used? Optimization. How can I optimize my environment or my services to better meet my end users' needs? And finally, troubleshooting. Be alerted to problems and identify where these are within your applications. So let's start off with troubleshooting. What we want to know is the system working? Then we can have a look at optimization. Can we improve our system? And then we can have a look at some economical efficiencies. Is it valuable? Can you see your returns on your investment? So let's look at these individually. Let's start off with troubleshooting. So what we can do is we can look, is my environment up and running? Are my map services running? Which ones are critical? Which ones do I need to look at now? Are my portal web links active? Do I need to go and look at my portal? Following that, we can start looking at optimization. How can we improve what we're delivering to our customers? Is there a better time to carry out server and site maintenance? We can have a look at our peak usage and try and understand when it'd be better to carry out maintenance. Which of our services require maximum performance, and is there a way that we can maximize that performance for those services? And we can delve down into how the people out in the field utilize what we're doing, and we can watch what's happening. So can we build a new workflow, for example, to reduce the time for the workers out in the field, make their life easier? So economical efficiencies. Can an application be turned off to free up resources? Is it being used? Can we actually turn it off? Because that'll free up valuable resources for other applications. What are the usage trends of our applications? We can look at that over the past 3 months or past 6 months, so we can then work out what we best need to provision for going forward. And should I continue supporting all the stuff that I am currently supporting? Do I need to support all the browsers that it does, or can we just support the ones that are actively being used? So just to cover that off, we're looking at troubleshooting, we're looking at optimization of our system, and we're looking at economical efficiencies. What we'll do now is we'll go into a demonstration and we'll delve in to analytics and see what we can see. Excuse me. So what we've got here is a demonstration website. This is hosted by Latitude Geographics, and this is their demo site. And when you fire up in analytics for the first time, what you see is this summary page. And you've basically got a set of traffic lights: red, orange, amber, and green. Green ones are okay, so these sites are all working fine, and we don't have to worry about those. We've got a few that are amber, so we've had 1 or 2 alarms. And then we've got a few of the orange, which are more alarms and probably more important. But then we've got some red ones, and red ones are, we need to have a look at these because we've got some problems. So if we have a look at, for example, delving into our ArcGIS Online here, so this is my summary page. I can click on this ArcGIS Online and I move into what we call our status page, so we can see the status of what's going on with these alarms. So you can see here we've got several different alarms that can be configured. You can configure content alarms. You can configure things, for example, like here, where we've got an alarm to fire if our credits for our users is less than 8,000. We've got response alarms here, so if I'm polling a service, is that service coming back in a timely manner? You can also analyze things like looking at your CPU performance. So if my CPU is more than 80% utilized for more than, say, 3 minutes, then raise an alarm, because that might be something that we need to look into. You can also have a look at these, and you can, for example, silence the alarm for 15 minutes or even clear the alarm altogether, or you can set how long you want to silence that alarm for. So you have full control over what you're doing within your system and what you're reporting on. So what we can now do is drill down a little bit further. So what we're going to look at is our servers here, and we're going to drill down into our GA demo site. And so we've got here some things that are just working in here, but we can start looking at the trends within this site. This is the trends, so we've got things like average CPU time and average network users and so on and so forth. That's for this current week. What we perhaps want to do is to look at maybe last month. So let's have a look at the month of April. We've currently got a weekly trend there, but I can click on here and I can say let's have a look at the average CPU per day over the last month. And what you can see, we've got all processes here, and it peaked on the 21st of April. And that's quite a steep peak compared to everything else throughout the rest of the month. And Geocortex Core is being used quite heavily there as well. So we might want to go back and investigate what happened on the 21st of April. It might be that we're just a lot of people looking at it. And being a demo site, it might be that Latitude released a new demonstration of what's going on there. So we can then drill down a little bit further, and we can perhaps go into portals and have a look at our portals and see what we can see within there. So this is the Latitude Geographics portal, and again we can view historical data. We're still in last month, so we can have a look at what happened in terms of items that were accessed, so changes within the content over the past month. And you can see that the apps change sort of fairly regularly. We've got quite a bit of user activity here. So the main user was Stefan Schweigert. He made 381 requests and 30 items created. So you can actually begin to drill down and see who's doing what and what they're actually doing with the system. So you see Brian here has made an awful lot of requests of the systems, but he's not actually created much, so he's probably just looking at maps and trying to understand what's going on with those maps. We can drill down even further. So what we might want to have a look at, so that was our portals. We might want to start looking at our ArcGIS servers. So what's going on with our ArcGIS servers? So again here we've got, within our ArcGIS servers, we're looking at what's happening. So we've got the server usage and performance. We've got the requests, we've got the unique users being used, and again these are all initially on a weekly slot here, but what I'll do is I'll go back and we'll have a look on a daily slot. But what I can do is I can filter. As you see, we've got a lot of service names here, so I can filter these service names by clicking here and just type in Los for Los Angeles. And we can get Geocortex applications and productions where there is, and Sandbox where there's a Los Angeles County, or we can click in here and we can filter within this area here, so we can say begins with or starts with Los Angeles. So you can filter down the number of services you want to look at, and because there's an awful lot of services that are out there, and perhaps we might want to drill down into the dynamic service for the Los Angeles County. So we can click on there and we can begin to look at the service history for this dynamic site here. So, and again, if we go on a daily basis, you can see the number of requests that are being made on a daily basis. Now, what's interesting about this is if you look at these colors here and you look at the menu on the side, you can see that it's mostly query operations and export operations that are happening. But in the main, it's the query operations, and we sort of know that query operations are quite heavy. So we need to try and understand what sorts of queries people are doing and maybe how we can optimize that to speed the applications up for the users. We also have service downtime. There's not much shown on here, but this sort of shows when the service was down or when people were carrying out maintenance, and these will be different colors, and we can have a look at those in another site because we'll be able to see that. We can have a look at the log messages, so we can see here that if I turn this to a day, these are the messages that are being logged. So there's 4 messages logged that day, 6 messages logged on the 17th, and 3 messages logged on the 27th. And if we scroll down a bit further, we can see what sort of messages are being logged here. So we've got some invalid queries being posted, and I suspect, looking at that number there, this is somebody from our European partner suite who's accessed the site, and instead of passing in a point, they've passed in a comma because of their variant on their browser will pass a comma instead of a point, a comma being the separator. And that obviously builds an invalid query when you're on the American side or the UK side. So I suspect that's what's happening at that point in time there. So what we can also do now is we can drill down a little bit and go into, let's just give it this here, and drill down a little bit more and drill into the production sites of Geocortex Essentials. So if I go into the Geocortex Essentials and go to the production side of things, now we're looking at the production sites that Latitude have. And again, we've got the aggregated Geocortex service requests over time. We've got the unique user requests, we've got the performance of our machine, response times we're getting. So we can begin to look at that, and then we can see where the peak times are. So heavy green here is a peak period, and these are the hours in the day and the date. So again, it looks like the afternoon is the peak period, which sort of would follow suit because Latitude are based on the west coast of Canada. So, you know, people in America waking up and looking at those sort of things for them. You've also got the alarms being thrown up here. And as we had before, we've got log information and we've got warnings. And you can pick whether you want to just show errors or whether you want to show warnings within the system. And you can see we have some site downtime here, and that was on the 26th, where there were 38 sites down for an hour. So that was probably some pre-planned maintenance on the site there. But bear in mind, this is a demo site, so things get turned off and turned on a fairly regular basis. Excuse me. So back up to the top and back up looking at the sites. What we can perhaps do here is, again, look inside here and have a look at, again, for our LA County site. So I can go into my LA County Plus sites here and actually begin to have a look at what's going on. So we've got an HTML5 2.8 viewer associated to that site. We've got a whole bunch of services. These are workflows essentially that is associated by this site, and you can see how many times these services have been invoked, how many sessions it's been run within, how many unique sessions, and then the average response time. So you can start looking at the average response time against the number of invocations. So if a workflow has been invoked just a few number of times, but the average response time is quite high, that may be something that you might want to look at to try and understand what's going on. So we can also order these things. So we can say order it by the number of invocations. So we've got 892 of the demographics query here in 38 sessions and 25 unique sessions, and the average response time is 1,000 milliseconds. So that's probably okay, but you can begin to try and analyze and look. So we've got here the trees workflow where it's invoked 22 times, and the average response time is quite high. Now that can be for a number of reasons, and sometimes that's linked to the actual starting up or what data's inside the site. So we can start looking at an individual resource request and try and understand what's happening there. So the trees data here is down here, and you can see that we've got that information here. We can have a look at how that trees data has been invoked, why it's been invoked, and then begin to have a look at what contents it has that might be slowing things up. So if we begin to now delve even deeper and start to have a look at applications, we can go into Geocortex applications and we can start having a look at a particular application within Geocortex. So if I just put a plus in here, it will start looking at the LA County Plus application. So if I click on that application itself, so now we can have a look at visitors visiting this application and the type of authentication that we get within the application, the duration of the people that are accessing it, again, peak time usage as we had before, concurrent sessions, etc., etc. But this at the bottom here is quite interesting. So what you can see on here is what's happening with that application as a pie chart. So 32% of the time is running workflows. So one of the obvious things we want to do here is to make sure that those workflows are performing at the best of their ability. So we can begin to understand where our sites are being used, what's being provoked or invoked on those sites. We've had 259 occurrences of run workflow, 93 occurrences of identity, so identifying objects, 45 occurrences of adding markup, set active tools, so changing tools a few times as well. But the majority is running workflows. So let's go and have a look at the workflows that are or what we need to do is go and have a look at the workflows that are associated to this application to ensure that they're running smoothly. So again, we can do unique users visiting our site. We can just click on these and get a daily summary. We can have a look at concurrent sessions. So when are the most concurrent sessions happening? So the fifth, so it looks like we've got 5 concurrent sessions is the most we're having. So this is important for you if you're trying to understand just how much or how much you need to configure your system, how many resources you need to give your system. If over a period of time you can understand how many concurrent sessions are happening, you can size your servers accordingly and try to understand how much resource you need to throw at this thing, because without understanding really how many people are using your system at any one time, it's very difficult to try and understand. We have people, when we say how many users are you going to have on your system, they say 3,000, 2,000 or maybe 500. How many of those are going to be concurrent? And that's really quite a finger in the air type exercises to try and understand how many concurrent sessions there may be at any one time, because that's obviously really important for understanding how much resource you need, for example, for background printing, or as we've seen, for querying and understanding what's going on. We can also begin to have a look at websites. So if I clear the plus from here and minimize Geocortex applications, we can go to websites and we can begin to have a look at Latitude's website. And again, we can have a look at if there's alarms on the website. We've got downtime. Again, there was some downtime at 12 o'clock on the 18th on this website, and the average response time per day. You can see there was a peak where the response time was quite slow on the 18th and the response time was quite slow on the 27th. So the 27th has certainly been cropping up as we've been looking through all of these reports here. The 27th of April certainly been cropping up. So that would be a day to go back and try and understand what happened on that day. And as I said, because this is a demo site, almost certainly what's been happening is new data has been added or a new demo is being added, so people are beginning to show those new demos out. And the other really nice thing finally to talk about is My Dashboards. So there's a lot of information going on here, a lot of collectors. There's over 150 different collectors that you can configure out of the box with analytics. As I've mentioned, you can configure CPU, you can configure emails, you can configure alarms to fire as and when you need in terms of response times. But you can set up your own dashboards to uniquely configure what you want to see. So there's a few on here, and I'll just click on, say, for example, the Trans Power dashboard, and you can see that they're interested in sessions by visitor type, whether they are new users, returning users, or just internal user sessions, and they're interested in server usage and performance, trying to understand who's hitting what and when. So you can configure these reports to suit yourself. So you might have your own dashboard that's a management dashboard that shows the overall access to the sites. This is giving you return on investment. If you've built an application, you want to know that your users are using it, and therefore the business investing in that application they've built, they're certainly getting the return on the investment, or they're not getting the return on the investment. And if you're not getting the return on the investment, you then need to try and understand why. But then for the IT people might want a dashboard that's looking more at concurrent users and CPU performance to try and understand where the CPU might be maxing out or where disk I/O might be maxing out, and so on and so forth. So you can configure your own dashboards to suit different groups' needs within your organization, and they can just have a URL to that dashboard. So when they start up, they just go, I want to go to this dashboard. So finally, just to summarize what we've been talking about here, what we've been talking about is troubleshooting, understanding where your systems are going wrong, where your services might be offline, where your services might be taking a long time to render. Looking at optimization, how can we switch off services we don't need? How can we turn off parts of the application we don't need, or make support for certain viewers not required anymore? And then economical efficiencies, ensure that we're getting return on investment on this data. Make sure that the applications we're running give us our return on investment. And you might see a slide here, I've sort of got them in the wrong order really, but we've got a licensing slide to try and explain to you how you might license the application. It's licensed on a tier basis, and it's licensed on your number of active ArcGIS identities. So you can see there's a tier 1, or your number of ArcGIS cores. There's a tier 1 where there's up to 150 users, tier 2 up to 300 users, tier 3 to 600 users, and then tier 4 is 600 plus, and that's 13 or more production cores. But to get up to that top end tier 4, you would need to be quite a large organization, in all fairness. So with that, I'll finish off and ask if there's any questions. I can see the question window flashing, so I'll just have a quick look there. Okay, so I've got a question that says, how long does it take to deploy analytics? And is there a lot of configuration or customization? The configuration of analytics is relatively straightforward. If you've installed Geocortex Essentials in the past, then installing analytics is not much different really. It's click on the installer and follow the prompts that you get. It does need to be in a cluster, so you need to understand the Geocortex Essentials clustering module, but that's all explained in the installation guide. Out of the box, it will try and automatically identify your ArcGIS service and automatically identify your sites, and it will try and build those in, and then just with a simple interface you can configure other things like understanding CPU process time and so on. How easy is it to configure your own reports is another question. So buy your own reports. I don't know whether you asked this question prior to me showing you your individual dashboard, but you basically configure the reports by creating your own dashboard. So if I go back here to my analytics, what I can show you is I can just go in here and I can say add a new dashboard, give the dashboard a name. I can create that dashboard and then I can say that I want to add these things to my dashboard. So I can add this to my dashboard, and then what I can also do is export the dashboard to PDF or export this current panel to PDF. So it's very easy to configure your own dashboard, add your own relevant parts to it. And as a follow-up to that question, coming up will be the ability to configure your own collectors. So if you have your own types of information you want to be looking at, such as SQL Server databases or something, you can build your own collector to try and analyze people accessing your SQL Server databases and how heavy that might be hit, or even your Oracle databases, or even if you have your own application, you can write a collector that will poll that application and understand how that application is working. So I've got another question saying, will it also monitor import on ArcGIS Online sites? It will, when you install the software, it will ask you whether you want to connect to ArcGIS Online and or ArcGIS Portal. And the answer is yes, it will monitor your ArcGIS Online sites, and it will also monitor your portal sites. Obviously, if they're restricted, it'll monitor the restricted ones, but it'll also monitor the open ones that you've got built into applications. So are there any other questions? Okay, so thank you very much for taking the time to listen to the webinar this afternoon. Please keep your eyes on our One Spatial website for further webinars that are coming up that will talk around the topics more on Geocortex. There'll be One Integrate webinars and also FME webinars. So it only remains for me to say thank you and have a great rest of the afternoon.